Good morning, y'all. What's up? Welcome back. I am Angelica with In God's Timing. Good early morning. It's like 3 something in the morning, y'all. But I ended up waking up, so I said, let me go ahead and do this video. So in this video, I'm going to be talking about parenting, right? So I wanted to use parenting because it's more broad. It's versus me just talking about being a single parent. So we all have different perspectives. And over time, not just with age, from experience, observation, so many different things, my perspective has changed. So me, myself, on the 1st, I turned 35. So not even just, like I said, with age, it's the mental, right? Mental maturity, how I view things. My perception has changed. My appetite has changed. We should always be growing. We're always under construction, right? Every day of your life, every aspect, you should always want more, want growth in yourself. And that's one of the biggest things for me. I want to see growth in myself. I want to see growth in my environment, in my children, people around me, my circumstances, situations. You want to see some type of growth or change in a positive manner. So when I even, talk about perspective, right? That's your viewpoint, how you see things, right? How you are able to look at situations in life in a reasonable way, right? Our perspectives can be different. And that comes from a lot of, like I said, your mindset. I learned over time how much your environment, your upbringing, learned behavior, people that you're around, how it can affect or help shape, mold, or groom you into certain tendencies, certain things that you experience, even generational curses. I learned all this through experience. This is one of the reasons why I share too, because a lot of times we don't have those in-between conversations about different things. So we assume everyone just knows. We go through the motions, but everything is taught and learned, whether it's consciously or unconsciously. Okay, experience is one of the biggest keys in life. And my thing is, why not catch it? So if you can help somebody else, or if I can help somebody else by sharing, sharing is caring. My experiences, it may help somebody else. And it's a possibility it may not. Everybody's different, but it's getting to a place where you can grasp wisdom, right? When you go through some experiences and hardships or just life, you can help somebody else. So these things that I'm going to talk about as far as my perspective, as far as parenting, including single parenting. I'm not married yet, so I'm giving from the different perspectives of my current life, my now situation. When I get married later, okay, or soon, okay, then I can give you from that perspective of that journey and that aspect of it. But anywho, this is based on my experience, observation, because of outcomes that I've seen, the impact, damage, brokenness and destruction, so many different things along my life journey and people that I've been around. That is what helped me draw some of the conclusions that I have now. And then two, I wanted to make sure that I was at a safe place as far as, well, that's how the Lord dealt with me. Because sometimes when we begin to talk about certain subjects that are sensitive, right, or can set off triggers, if you're leaking, if you haven't dealt with your internal issues, right, got some of that infection out, we'll end up bashing each other, we'll end up bashing people, and a lot of times we don't take accountability. So that's one of the biggest things that I've had to do, was take accountability for my part, what I missed, what I didn't see, right? And some things aren't fair. It's messed up, but at the same time, I look at it, some of our parents, or even ourselves, you get to a place where you have to understand you don't know everything, right? You don't. I wasn't, well, let me say it like this. I learned over time how to even be a mother, right? Still learning. Some things, until you actually experience it, you don't know what you're going to do. I don't care how many books you read. I don't care how many people tell you. Until you actually go through certain things and certain situations on your own, that is when you will be able to actually understand or be able to apply little different things that you learned in your life. So like, even just like I said, when I was talking about upbringing, how everything plays a factor. When I said environment, your parents, and when I think about parenting, for me, this is what comes to mind. Okay, so you have single parents, okay, where you have a one parent home with either a mother or a father. You have marriages, right, that are parenting. I've seen situations where you have, and for many of us, especially in the Black community, where you have the mother is the more dominant role, and you will have a mother and a father in the home, but the mom is more the authoritative one, right? Where some of the fathers may be more reserved and laid back. Then you have some where they're balanced, right? They have a healthy relationship, or they're willing to grow and build together, to build their family, right? To help raise their children. So it's different perspectives of parenting. It just depends on the scenario. It depends on their situation as a whole. And I dealt with myself a lot of stereotypical things. And that's a lot of the things that I realized that frustrated me, where many of us get put in a box, different little boxes in our lives, as far as, because you look like this or because you did this, I expect you to be this way, right? And you don't have to be a product of your environment. That's a choice. Okay, you can have people that possibly go the right way, some people possibly don't, but it's based on the individual. It's based on teaching. It's based on upbringing. We learn things consciously and unconsciously. We look back over our lives from situations or things that we experience that affect us as adults, that affect you as children. So when you know better, you do better. So even in my journey and in my growing process, those things that I experienced throughout my life, and even now, or I have observed, I use that and apply it to different areas, even with making better decisions, right? Forecasting certain things, as far as, okay, you've seen this before, learning how to use what you have. And as I mentioned, how the impact of things that we experience in our upbringing and our childhood, it affects you. It does. I said so many have become so numb to the point where we just go through the motions, and what is abnormal has been normalized. Okay, the broken homes, the toxic relationships, toxic mindsets, a lot of things that we acquire over time is learned behavior. Things that we saw our parents do, things that we may have heard them do, certain tendencies and mannerisms that we have. It affects everything. So then when you become an adult and you have children, or even just say relationships, period, it's a possibility that you may have issues. It's a possibility that you don't know what you're doing, because you don't. As I said, there is no books. There is no, we have the Bible that gives us instructions. But until you actually, like I said, experience certain situations, you won't know. It's like that fight or flight. So for example, for me, even when I had children, when I had my first daughter, my mindset automatically went into like reality, grind mode. But everybody's built differently. Okay? So I automatically hit the ground running, as far as knowing what I needed to do, even with circumstances. So with me, I even learned over my life through relationships, right? And this was as I got older, that a lot of the relationships that I had were toxic, with a few serious relationships I had, but they started off nice. I didn't know, or wasn't taught, that you can be chose, but you don't have to choose back. So a lot of little nuggets and keys that I wish I had known, but at the same time, I can help somebody else. Because a lot of times we will get what our appetite desires. And I'm saying based on like our environment. Then I used to talk to pharmacists, or, we have this stereotypical thing of who's cool and who's not cool, or who to talk to, who not to talk to, by the exterior. And I ended up finding out a lot of people had issues, right? So even with men, coming from a healed place where I can talk about it now, because before it would be triggers for me, just to even talk about certain situations I experienced. Knowing that some men, they don't know how to be men. They don't know how to be fathers. They may not know how to be a husband. They may, even with women, okay, not knowing how to be a mother, not knowing how to be a wife, or what a wife consists of, or what a husband consists of. You know, those are things that we just automatically assume we're all supposed to know, right? It just seems like common sense, but common sense isn't common. We have to think about sometimes that we flow from models and examples. So if your first example is your parents, and a lot of ours, of course, they're not perfect. They were never perfect. But when that picture perfect dream or what you thought wasn't, and you find out, you know, certain things start happening in your household or family or, you know, parents and stuff, it affects how you view things. It affects every aspect of your life. So even from the aspect of, you know, whether it be divorce, adultery, you know, abuse, these different things help groom and frame your thinking, even your responses. So many of the men that I even dated or was in serious relationships, they had single mothers, right? I did the what is it? So before I get into that part, when I say I even learned to, like I said, you have to see a model as a father, right? Certain things are characteristics, and like I said, it is possible that you can do better, but when you are deprived or you lack certain things, it makes it challenging for you to know what it looks like as far as a man or a husband or what to expect. So even as parents, we have to do better in our relationships as people, adults, right? Adulting, doing better on how we present ourselves, how we carry ourselves, how we model ourselves, and even just talking, communicating. Okay, a lot of times we don't want to share or talk about certain things when it's necessary. I've learned that throughout my journey with meeting people in relationships, how a lot of us had experienced similar things, right? As far as issues, hurt, pain, parent, you know, issues with parents or, you know, from relationships. A lot more people have more in common than you think. But because a lot of times we have on this mask, or we have, you know, put this facade up like I'm good and, you know, I'm so perfect, but internally we all deal with stuff. Life has affected and impacted us all. So anyways, like I was saying, for with the relationships part, I learned the hard way. But then I understood later as God began to counsel me and deal with me, they didn't know how to be a boyfriend. They didn't know how. So in my mindset, marriage was not taught, okay? It wasn't really even talked about, right? So I always wanted to be a wife. You know, my mindset was going there as I guess as I got older. But at the same time, it was like you didn't really see many marriages, especially in the Black community, right? Some people did it just because or for religious reasons and so many different other things, but we didn't have a lot of healthy models, let me put it like that. You had a lot of arrangements and situationships, and it makes sense because I almost did that. You know, I tell people, I said, I don't care to talk about anybody because I would have been divorced twice. Okay, making decisions or just doing things because it sounds right, or, you know, wanting to do the right thing, knowing that sometimes it's timing for certain relationships, marriages. We move too fast sometimes, or we listen to other people like, girl, go ahead and do it, or man, bro, you got to be ready for yourself, for the individual. Okay, so as I said, with certain relationships that I had, like I said, I didn't know you didn't have to choose back. At the same time, if you're, hurt people, you'll have some people that are drawn to each other from the exterior, from the swag, from the whatever looks and all that other stuff. And when you actually really get to know them, it's not what you thought. It's not what you expected. And I was one of those ones that I stayed too long. And I had got to a place of bitterness because it hurts when you are in a relationship with somebody and it's like you think you know them and you don't. So this is why I say everything plays a part in just even your understanding, right? Your perspective, you know, your perception, right? Everything. It helps shape what you see. So certain relationships we end up getting in, or that I had got in at the time, you know, they were emotional. I dealt with abuse, physical abuse, right? I noticed with men over time, some of the ones that I was in relationship with, and I found out later that this was in my generation, in my family, abusive relationships. So with some things that I even dealt with or was impacted by, because family didn't talk about it, because I wasn't prepared, or just didn't even know, I accepted and tolerated more than I should have. But then when we would have conversation as far as family or different people, oh, well, I experienced this and I experienced that. You weren't going to tell me? That's like giving somebody a heads up. That's wisdom. Come on, like the Proverbs, like in Proverbs when, the mama and the daddy was giving game to the son. Like, sometimes we have to prepare our kids for things. We don't want to have certain conversations, in families because you don't want people to see you differently. But sometimes allowing people to see you naked and being vulnerable and honest, people respect you more. On top of you're helping your children, you're helping someone else to see, hey, I messed up right here, but you can clean up right here. Giving them, like I said, a heads up. So as I mentioned with certain men, emotional, coming from single moms, thinking about women are emotional. So when I say we end up putting certain tendencies and mindsets on our children, women have done that. So if you see that we have more single mothers, and then the rate of how our men are changing, let's say it like that, our children are changing, the way things are happening in a single parent home, or just even how some women are, we see the difference, but we don't want to address it. So until we become aware and address how these things do affect our children, affect our relationships, our tolerance, it gets worse. It really gets worse because it's like you're trying to tell somebody to be something that they don't know how to do. As I said, it's a possibility people can do better, as far as making changes in their life, wanting better for themselves. But then it's a grand possibility where you have a lot of people where they have become so damaged and messed up from their upbringing, from their childhood, from things that they've experienced, from hurt, from pain, from so many obstacles and challenges along the way, that it affects every aspect of their life. Let alone when you add on, let me see, how can I word this? Strategic things at hand that help hold us down, keep us from fulfilling purpose, right? Challenges, hardships, strongholds. It's broad. When you factor all of those things in, you get people that are blanking out, that are losing control, under a lot of pressure. I wish I woulda, coulda, rejection, hurt, regret, so many different issues that we end up seeing that are maturing now. So when I began to learn, even like I said, with men from my life, they didn't know how, or even just, especially like most of them were black men. Majority of them were black men. So when you already are thinking about their upbringing, what they see, what they experience, and when you couple that with issues and challenges and trauma and lifestyles and environment, all of that, it can lead to toxic mindsets and relationships because they don't know how. Some even become users where they will use you to get where they need to go. I've seen women do it too. Where I've seen women, some women got the realest game in the world. And see, I was one of those ones. I'm different, even now. I don't care to, like some women are mass manipulators. Like when I say devious and wicked, some of the stuff that they do, like you got some women that'll set people up. You got some women that will lie, snook, and crook, is what they say try to do what men do, but it's dangerous. It's very dangerous because you got people out here that's crazy and that'll take you out of here for playing games like that. As far as with their emotions, getting what you can by using your body or your sex appeal, right? Using whatever you can to get what you want. It is kind of like a prostitute, but we don't look at it like that. We downgrade what it really is. So we have a lot of toxic people or individuals that get into marriages, that get into relationships, that end up having children. So I've even noticed where you'll have people go through so much and have so many challenging experiences that when they do become aware or they begin to mature, so much damage has been caused or the impact has become so great. It's now you just trying to function, trying to keep it together. I'm blessed that my parents and I, that we can really talk now, right? We can have real conversations. Everybody doesn't have that. So a lot of mindsets that I even had, or tendencies, things that I unconsciously picked up from my parents, from relationship perspective, right? From how I view things, even just how I parent. So I mentioned when I first had my oldest, I automatically just went into getting stuff together, right? Learning the hard way. And I thank God for my mom and my dad. You know, a lot of times a lot of people end up bitter towards their parents. And I believe that's even why it's a command to honor thy mother and thy father, because God already knew. Our parents aren't perfect either, y'all. And we aren't either. So when you begin to open up your perspective and how you view things or even view people, you can give mercy. You can give understanding. So even with the things that I'm talking about, what came from this was wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. So, you know, you can get all the knowledge, right? And you can get wisdom. But the understanding is the application part. Being able to apply these different things that you've experienced, different things that you learn from relationships, from situations, from life. Understanding is when you begin to apply those things to every aspect of your life. So even when I say my viewpoint, it changed because from learning, even as a single mother, I didn't just say, oh, I want to be a single mother today. And everyone's situation is different. And as I mentioned, that's what would frustrate me, because I will be put in a box, you know, whether it be from the school to the daycare, you know, or just in general as a Black single mother, right? We have this stereotypical that they're all ghetto. You know, most of the time people are like, oh, they on assistance, they living off the assistance. Now you have some that do that. And that's the thing. You have some in each category, men and women, different backgrounds, that there are some that in this group may do this, some in this group may do this. Then you have some that do different. Remember I told you it's possibilities. But to still be put in that whole box with everybody else, it comes with frustration. But breaking people's expectations, breaking people's perspective. So when I begin to be different from the aspect of every time I would drop my kids off at school or even daycare, I was always, first of all, always running. You know, as a parent, you always running. Seemed like you always moving fast. They would see me working, going to school, uniform, running here and there. Take kids, come to school, daycare. I keep them decent, well-mannered, learning to do better. Even though it's unfortunate that you will have situations where you end up being a single parent. It wasn't by choice. You have some women that, yes, they do, what does they say, trap a man for a baby. You do have some that do that. You do have some women that abuse the system. You do have some women that use and manipulate men. They use their body, they use their looks, whatever it is, you know, they do. But not everyone does. But because you have so many that are similar and have similar characteristics, many will group as a whole. And it's dysfunctional. And it leaves a bad taste in people's mouth because everybody's not like that. Same thing with our men. I know men that have been single parents, that have raised their children, right? I've even seen situations where you will have, I don't like to argue. I don't like drama. Okay, you have a lot of women, look, they'll key your car, they'll be outside. You know, we have these movies and these memes or stereotypical things that they show you how baby mamas and all that stuff will do. Baby, I'm a mother, and I don't have time for all that. And I'm be honest, even with the role reversal, you have some men just as bad as women. This is why you have to heal and learn to sometimes love people from over there, right? You can't make nobody change. You can change you. You have the ability of making changes in yourself to help your children, to help grow and mature. So as I mentioned, you have some men that are single parents, awesome fathers. I've met some men that are awesome fathers. I'm talking about some of my Black men, awesome fathers. But then they'll have a woman that they had children with, because I'm not going to say baby mama, a woman that they had children with, she's immature. You know, how we get in our feelings sometimes, doing too much, keeping the kids from them, and they take care of their kids. But then you'll have some situations, come on, different perspectives. Then you'll have some situations where you will have toxic relationships with mother and fathers and have drama, and it affects the kids. Then you'll have women that work hard to take care of their kids. You know, it is what it is, whether it been from divorce they became a single parent, whether it been from circumstances. It's people that's been married and the woman ended up being a single parent, right? Or even the father, but more so the woman. But they were married, it was a man in the home, but they were operating like a single parent. So it's different perspectives. It just depends on where your mindset is, how you can see. And like I said, the reason why I see like I see is because of experience. So with saying that, we have to begin to hold each other accountable. I got to a place where even for me, where I played wifey without the title, as far as shacking up, as you can say. Okay, dealing with folk mamas, and we not even married. So yes, you have even some mothers, let me be honest, that you mess your sons up. You enable them. I've heard that saying where the mothers parents will, mothers more so, will push their girls and coddle their boys. Where the women are more is expected of them, but the boys you will more nurture. And it ends up causing damage. So then I begin to see, especially in the Black community, and I'm sure others may experience too, but I have to tell you from my experiences and my perspective, right? Where I've seen where, Black women, Black mothers will coddle and baby their boys, enable them. But then they wonder why they're single. So the very thing that you raised, that's what you dating. I don't think we think about stuff like that. Even when we see how a woman raising boys and girls, how it can affect them as far as their maturity, how they carry themselves, how they view life when it's a single parent, right? All these different things that affect them growing up. A father helps give identity, right? He helps bring vision. A mother helps build, nurture. So when you getting only one side of a frequency, right, it's unbalanced. So then we wonder why when we look around and we see all this dysfunction, at the same time, we had help to help contribute to it, right? Help to contribute to the damage, the dysfunction, the challenges we experience. So I even used to look at it like, or I still look at it sometimes, where it's like you can make a mistake or in life, but as a Black woman or a Black man, you make a mistake and it's like no redemption. It can affect your whole life. Whether it be having kids early, missing something in school, whatever, it could be anything. It's not the same for us as it is for others. It's like a setup for failure, a setup for damage, or a setup for destruction. Because it's like trying to bounce back. I see so many who mindset is so off and so thrown. They're so one-track mind, or even won't even acknowledge how they've affected their kids' lives, how they've affected themselves, or just whatever, people around them, relationships. They ignore a lot of that. But don't ignore the fact that you wonder why your kids are going through. You wonder why you are going through, because you didn't want to deal with those issues. What you don't deal with, what you don't revisit, it will always resurface. So I've even seen situations where, some parents will spoil their kids. They'll give them everything, right? Because they want them to have a better life, which is nothing wrong with that, but you need balance. So then they think because I gave them everything, so when they begin to make mistakes or they fall or they become entitled or they get to tripping or whatever, they like, well, I gave you everything. But it still didn't stop the fact of those internal things that we don't deal with, those things that we don't talk about, they come up later. So now you may have a grown adult that is dealing with issues that may have came from your generation, things that they may experience on their own, things that are familiar that they don't know how to handle now. Because there's certain, I've met so many different people, like people that have been touched, people that have come from foster homes, broken homes, divorce, we all come from different backgrounds, different walks of life. but how all these different things impact them. So I even had somebody tell me recently, he's learning how to be a man. And I said, well, some conversations, even with men and women, some people wouldn't even have with you, because can they trust what they share or what they talk about, that you're going to keep it in a safe place? Because you have so many that think they just know it all and you got it all together, but you got some people that are still learning, because they may have not been taught properly and you just grew up. A lot of us, many of us grew up fast, right? We grew up fast, like literally, like as far as just wanting to be grown, experience life, and you grew up fast. Or even sometimes your circumstances cause you to have to grow up faster. You have some children or teenagers that are like parents when they should be being children. So then you have a lot of our parents, or even some of us in this generation, where you had to grow up fast. So now it's like, I've seen certain people when they go out or when they do something, they're like children. Even some of my aunts and stuff, when they get together, they have such a good time. They like teenagers, because you had to grow up so fast, you didn't have time to enjoy your life. You didn't get the opportunity to experience certain things. And that's the part that has helped destroy our families. Okay, the balance of needing the unity, needing the mother and the father in the home. I understand that. I respect that. Having marriages, right? Because it wasn't meant for us to be single parents, male or female. But that has become so much of the norm in this independent feminist movement, or this I'm so strong mindset, go get it. And folk are lonely. People are empty. Our homes have been, a lot of them been destroyed, dysfunctional, toxic. And before we get to a place where, let me reword that. Anyways, mindsets, right? You have to change your mindset, the way you think, the way you see things, your perspective. So let me say it like this. Understand that not all men know how to be men, and not all children. And we can be at a place where we continue to blame everybody else, but sometimes we have to see things for what it is. It is some things that we missed growing up, with some of us more than others, as far as that model, that example, knowing how to be able to grasp certain situations, what to look for in a man, what to look for in a woman, what to expect out of life. That teaching. The word says, train up a child in the way they should go, right? So if you miss certain things, you become deficient. You end up lacking certain things that were necessary, that were needed for your growth process. So a lot of these different things God allowed to happen. But at the same time, a lot of things, some we brought on ourselves. You have to want change for you. We hear more and more people now talking about how many traumatic situations they've went through, right? How many things that they have experienced that have affected their mindset, their life, their functioning, their peace, how they think, their relationships, every aspect of their life. That's what we're hearing about. So you should want change. But knowing that the things that we do, relationships that we get in, sometimes we do miss it. But like I said, I had to get to a point of accountability. Like, Lord, I missed it. I didn't know what I was looking for, what to accept or what not to accept. So now that I know, I can use that. But at the same time, thanking God, because He will restore not only order, but He will bring about change, not only in your life, but for somebody else. So don't ever think that, oh, nobody's going to want me. If you keep God first, it will come. But the biggest thing is people learning to heal, learning to deal with your issues, learning to ask questions, okay? Learning to find out what is it that, from your generation, things that make you tick, things that you need to work on. All of those different things play a factor, because our kids are being affected. Our generation is being affected as I speak. Like, I look at so many situations, even for me, how with my girls, how things impact them. That's why I choose to be different. That's why I choose and strive to change and grow and mature daily. Because I know from my own personal experience, from things that I went through and things that I experienced in my family, things that I saw or observed, I know how it can destroy. I know how it can mess up your thinking. If I don't teach and train them, or even put them on game, right? As far as things to be aware of, certain types of women, certain types of men, parents being mindful of all these different things that they may have to deal with, preparing them for life. Because if I don't, somebody else will. So one of the biggest things, too, that it caused me to have heart cries, when you're striving to do the right thing, when you made mistakes, and experience has taught me. I've learned a lot from hardship, from challenges, where being around people, it seemed like they just wanted to see you be destroyed. How so much in your life, you don't realize, even sometimes the people close to you, people that you've loved, right? Or you thought you loved, whether it be friendships, relationships, whatever, they end up trying to hurt you. That can hurt. So that's why I had to learn to know where to put people. Okay? I wish you no bad, but I'm going to love you from over there. Because I want to grow. I want to heal. And like I said, I began to cry out to God like, Lord, I need help. Because I'm not typical. I'm not ordinary like everyone else. I can't speak for them, anyone. I'm going to speak for Angelica. But I said, Lord, I work hard. I take care of my kids. And then I'll be honest, I was like, I ain't signed up for this. But I had to take accountability because I missed it. So being an adult, being mature, you do what you got to do. But what about those that can't? Or those that get tired? Or those that aren't here no more because it was too much pressure? You don't know how people will respond. That's why it's important to share and talk about certain things. Because a lot of times people deflect or find different ways of coping. I know how that feels. So when I began to cry out to him and ask for help, and he got on me. I used to be like, I can't do nothing. I used to be like, Lord, other people shack up and they don't get in trouble. Look, he began to make things uncomfortable. Where I couldn't do what everybody else was doing. Is either you're going to get married or you're going to shut it down. And I worked on it and tried to, but sometimes we try to make something work. That's why I said I would have been divorced myself. Where sometimes things just seem right. It's the right thing to do. But sometimes when you get in situations or relationships and it's out of order and it's out of the wrong motives as far as broken places, it's not going to work. And timing is everything. Sometimes it may not necessarily be the person is a bad person, but at the place where they're at right then, they still have some growing to do, some maturing to do. And if they're willing to do the work, then it's a possibility y'all can be together and be married. But it's certain things that you got to work on throughout the journey in the process, right? Because if not, things will still resurface when you get married. I've heard people say they enhance. You can see a lot more clearly once you get married, certain things that you may have not seen before, when you were living together or when you were in a relationship with someone. You see more clearly when they say living with them and you get married, you see clearly. But we want to catch stuff before it happens, right? We want to learn from people around us. You should want to. Learn from your own personal experiences, right? Because that's where that damage comes in. It's a lot of broken people out here. So as I said, I began to cry out like, Lord, I need help. This don't make sense. I've made mistakes, but it shouldn't be like this though. Like even there would be times where that's one reason why I'm up at night. I started working at night, not because I wanted to, because I had to. Where you have times where somebody may not watch your kids, right? As a single parent. Folks say, I gotta work. I work too. The job doesn't care about that. If I'm late or if I don't have a sitter or something happens, I still have to figure it out and make something shake. Those are part of the things too that built up my fortitude, where I've had to suck it up. But I'm at a place now, especially getting older, I'm like, Lord, I'm tired. You still do what you got to do, right? Not in a pity way, you know, not saying it like that, but how it becomes a lot. But we've normalized so many different things as far as single parenting and the dysfunctional stuff that we see with our men and with our girls and, you know, with relationships and just across the board, where we have normalized it and it's dysfunctional. It's toxic. And then people are confused of why all these things are happening because folk just acting like nothing's going on. And people out here going through stuff, just trying to live, survive, deal with life, hardships, bounce back, etc. So anywho, when I began to cry out to the Most High, like, Lord, I need help, He got on me about making some changes. I went and started my journey of Him dealing with me, maturing me, getting me to a place of needing to be celibate. Sit your butt down because I am fertile. Okay, some of us, you know, knowing that you can't do what everyone else does, learning to recognize familiar spirits in relationships, in people, whether it be friendships or intimate relationships. I had to learn certain things, you know, pick up on certain things. But He had me clean up and change too. God got me to a place of taking accountability, but responsibility for my part. So the more I began to cry out to Him, you know, just like a parent, you know your child's voice. You know when that cry is real. You know when it's from the heart. It's a place of I need you. As a parent, I know my children, right? So that's the same way how God is with us. He knows His children. So when I even talk about heart cries on my videos, or I can identify them in other people where they're dealing with so much hurt and pain and stuff, I can identify with it because I know what it feels like. I know what it feels like to be rejected. I know what it feels like to, you know, feel like I'm doing everything right. I'm trying and it's not working. I know what it feels like to be hurt, be broken, right? All of those different things. So I can relate and identify with other people when I see it in them. So I got away from being so judgmental to being understanding. That comes when your view changes. Perspective. Come on, experience. For some, right? Romans 8:28, and we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. So despite all the mistakes, the hardships, God already knows. He has a plan for our life. So as of this moment and now, I've been walking in purpose. It took time. I'm one of those ones, I took the long way around. But at the same time, as I said, God will accelerate you. He will allow all those things that was, like I said, sometimes used to take you out of here, to break you, to damage you. Use that a part of His purpose to help build you. So those very things that where people try to maybe tear you down or break you down, because like I said, sometimes they come from close, or people will try to hurt you with their words or, you know, just how they treat you. This is why it's so important for many of us to be healed. It'd be nice for all of us, but many of us to be healed. Mothers and fathers, our parents, healing, right? Your mindset changing. Because like I said, you end up messing up your sons and your daughters, grown adults. And then you wondering why they keep doing the same things over and over again. But then the scripture too. Because, you know, moms for them sons can be something else. But then you question why you experience certain things in relationships. That's why I say sometimes the very thing that you raise, as far as your sons or your daughters, you get it back. And you end up making a lot of grown children. We end up seeing a lot of grown children. Like, you know, immature men and women. And it's like at some point, you got to get that light bulb. Like, you don't see this? You not tired yet? You don't see this as toxic or as unhealthy? But then we sit back watching each other suffer and go through stuff and people having mental breakdowns and not addressing things for what it is. The sins of the father passed down to the third and fourth generation. That's scripture. That's prophecy. That's what we're seeing. That's why I say it is so important to communicate, to talk, because there's certain things that we're seeing passed down, certain tendencies, mindsets, things that were learned, taught and learned, that's affecting this generation. So when God begins to hear his people cry out, and this has been happening for some time, but it was in his timing that we actually can see the manifestations, right, of certain things, even his goodness, but even just him allowing things to happen, because the enemy is so busy, right? But he knows and hears his people crying out to him that we need help. He's in love with the backslider. So this is why I say, even a part of my healing journey and my process, I began to learn that, look, ain't nobody perfect, right? So when folk try to talk about everybody or down somebody or put us in boxes and stuff like that, I get to a place, I'm at a place right now where I'm like, look, whatever. Because as I said, you don't have to be a product of your environment, right? But it is things that affect you. I make the choice to show up, right, for my kids, to show up for me, to focus, to keep going, to strive, not to give up, even when it's challenging. So we think sometimes it's always about what we have and what we get, but sometimes the lack, God will allow the lack. He will allow you to go through certain processes so he can get the glory. That's what we're seeing taking place. I've had many moments recently where my faith is being tested, where the Lord is having me to step out and do things that's big and bold, that doesn't make sense, that catch 22. But then I talked about recently, catch this, it's 22. Catch this 22, don't miss it. Where he will allow you to experience certain things so when it comes back again, even with the relationships, you recognize it, you see it, right? Familiarities. So you don't miss it this time. That's across the board in every area of our life. From our experiences, from things we've observed, from things that we learned throughout our life, use it and apply it. So then you'll be prepared later and prepared now. So in Matthew 22, it's the parable of the wedding banquet, right? Where Jesus invites guests to come to his wedding, right? And they didn't want to come. He invited his own people. They didn't want to come to the wedding. So he sent the disciples out to go to the streets. I'm putting this in my own words. To go invite whoever, the good or bad, whoever, invite them to the wedding banquet. Because my own people, you know how we do sometimes. They don't want to come. So he invited. So many were invited, but few were chose. So let me break this down so I can help y'all understand what I'm trying to say from this. How God has been extending invitation to many of us, right? On cleaning up, working on ourselves. This is the generation of breaking generational curses. Healing, just maturing, so many different levels of different things. Extending the invitation to drawing people closer to him. And many people are kind of like falling away, or just everybody's in their own little zone or competing, or, it's a lot of confusion and chaos going on. But what is it when your own people, come on, when you extend the invitation, they don't treat you like you think you should be treated. They don't love you right. So he goes, to whomsoever will, let them come. Let me invite them. Because my people, they don't want to come. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face, then, come on, things will begin to turn around. So it's like being late to the wedding. How they say black folk late to everything. You see this awakening happening, and many of us are waking up. Many of us are beginning to see more clearly. Our perspective is beginning to change. But then you have many that have been so damaged, have so much toxic, and a lot of these things, like I said, was helped, contributed to through other situations and other things, right? So it affects people's functioning, their growth. Many's growth has been stunted. We look at many of our loved ones and different things. Growth has been stunted. It's like they can't get right spirit. Like, what is this? God only extends the invitation. You make the choice if you want to come or not. We take a lot of things for granted sometimes. And we are dusty. We dirty. We make, like I said, he's in love with the backslider. We be off. We don't listen. We're hard-headed. We don't follow directions. I'm learning to trust God and trust the process. So even in this season, how many of us are being groomed and prepared for marriage, for literally natural marriage, but then we're also being groomed and prepared for the bridegroom. Come on. So when many will push people away because, or reject, those that they feel like are not like them, or you're not in my in crowd, or because of you don't have this, or just, how folk do, competing and all this other stuff. Well, God has his children discipling in the streets, working. Whomsoever will, let them come. At the same time, for our own people. Come on, let me speak for myself. God using you as a drawing card, I've heard somebody say. Because you speak the language. You identify. Who wants to see their children hurting? Who wants to see their loved ones or their people suffering and going through stuff or being stagnant and stuck? Something even just because you have money, you think you're getting somewhere, but then you're lacking in this area. You balling out, but then your kids and your home is being destroyed. It's dysfunctional. Your kids running amok. It's not balanced. So what is it to gain the whole world and lose your soul? What is it to gain the whole world and watch your kids sit back or your family not grow and not prosper? But you good though, right? That's that selfish mentality that we see with people. As long as I'm good, me and mine, I'm okay. That's selfish. It's enough for everybody to eat. Okay? It's enough for everybody to, who don't want to be blessed? Who don't want their families to prosper? And I'm not just talking about money. An inheritance, right? Leaving something for your children. Come on, wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But as I said, that understanding, it comes with application. You got to get to work. That means being a model and an example for your children. Being an example for your co-workers, for your friends, but still being honest. That's been a part of my healing process. Being honest. First of all, with myself. Because I tell folk, you can lie to people all day. You can lie to yourself. But God already knows. That's why I choose to be honest. Where I'm like, Lord, I need help in every area. But I'm pressing my way and pressing towards the mark. I make mistakes. I fall. Because a lot of times folks so perfect, they won't even say that. I miss it sometimes. As I said, I'm learning to trust him. So the very things he's been teaching me, throughout my journey and my process, it's been a part of purpose. Walking in purpose. How can you, even with now, I can say I'm a wife. Come on, he's been grooming me, preparing me. Some of you, husbands and wives, he's been preparing you and grooming you for marriage. He's been preparing or grooming you on how to parent. Different aspects of your life, he's been grooming and preparing you. Everybody's not on the same level. We don't all move the same. But because on the outside, people may think that you haven't gotten anywhere, you're not doing anything. It's the internal that takes place first. So before God gives certain things, sometimes to some of us, he wants to work on the inside. Because I got work for you to do. On top of sometimes when people get too much too quick, it can alter their thinking, alter their motives. They become selfish, haughty, prideful, flexing, whatever you want to call it. But when you went through some real experiences, a life, come on, and you gain some understanding, some wisdom and knowledge coupled all together, you've been humbled, you're a little sensitive and tender, God can work with that. He doesn't want the prideful. where you're so high, you're untouchable, unreachable. He can't work with that. God loves a humble heart. So as I said, you have many that are hurting, that are broken. You have some, like I said, some women grown. They may be some of these young girls. They don't know how to be parents. But then you have some that, look, walk right in it. Even if they did learn from the hard way, they do what they have to do for their kids. Not everybody, like I said, is a gold digger. Not everybody is thirst trapping, because people will put that picture on black women. But you got women in every race that do some stuff. You got men in every race that will do some stuff. Off the chain. But you know, black folk get the worst rep. The worst stereotypes. Even though things affect all of us. We get it seemed like the greatest impact sometimes. I'm going to be honest. I'm like, goodness gracious, as a whole and collectively, right? With me starting these 2 businesses or whatever that the Lord gave me, I've even had people share with me, you know, talking about, you know, giving me little disclaimers and stuff like that. And it's sad, you know, when we'll talk about, you know, how our people are as far as with business and not supporting each other and, you know, just the shadiness. And I'm like, that's horrible. Or even just, you know, certain conversations that I've had with people or I've heard people have as far as how black people are as a collective. It's sad. When it's our own people, the division, that's what I'm talking about, right? The dysfunction, the hatred, and still don't see it. But God brings things into perspective so you can see more clearly, so you can get understanding. And that comes from experience. And it may not always be the experience that you think you want. This is why I say learn from people around you. Learn from your own life. Learn from every aspect, because you want to avoid unnecessary setbacks, unnecessary hits, strongholds, look, dysfunction. Some stuff we bring on ourselves because we hard-headed. I mentioned I'm one of those ones. I was hard-headed. I couldn't get away with like many other people felt like they were getting away, because nobody gets away with anything. It may be just for a time or for a moment. You reap what you sow. So be mindful of that. You reap what you sow. You may not be reaping right now, but your kids might. Your family might. So the things that are taking place is a lot bigger than us. Bigger than us. We're talking about generational right now. Generational building. Generational healing. So the enemy is busy. It is things that are taking place quickly and speedily. So that's why I have to pray and be honest with God. Like, Lord, help me to hold on. Help those around me. God sends help. Thank you, Holy Spirit. That's what it is. When I was talking about the heart cries, God sends help. I had been praying and crying out to him because things weren't making sense. He began to send help. But it wasn't the way that I expected or how I wanted. But he began to send help. He began to lighten the load. That's what I want in a husband. Not just to lighten the load. Like I said, my appetite changed, right? As I began to mature, things that I used to like, I don't really care for no more. What I need and what I want, it started making more sense. First and foremost, a man after God's own heart. A man after God. That's the main thing. Learning from it. Because a lot of us have been broken, have been hurt. But can you help heal the wound? Right? Can you care for other people the way you want to be cared for? So a lot of the things that I've experienced has helped, like I said, groom and mold me to be teachable. To be able to love others. Come on, the greatest commandments. First of all, love the Lord thy God with all thine heart. But then love my neighbor too. That came from experience. It came from hurt. It came from pain. It came from, I learned obedience through the things that I suffered. That means where the scripture becomes real to you. It's not just a book, as some people would think it is. It's alive. It's real. So I know this was a bit long and all over the place, just a little bit. As I said, I told you I was like 3 something in the morning. It might be like 4 o'clock. But I wanted to make sure I talked about this. But like I said, it was the parenting part. It's different perspectives. But knowing that our parents, us as parents, adults, everything that we go through, everything we experience, it affects every aspect of our life. For our children, things that have affected us, that was reciprocated, it's different perspectives. So don't give up on your children. Don't give up on your parents. Don't give up on your loved ones. You pray for them. Sometimes you may have to love them from a distance because God does the working on them. One man waters, one man planteth, but God gives the increase. So in his timing, if they allow him to do the work on them and through them, then you'll see change. You can't make them change. But what you can do is begin to change. You can begin to change your atmosphere, your surroundings. Be an example, a model. But be honest. Be transparent. Things that we talk about, facts, truth, that's what draws people. Come on, the truth will set you free. So that raises the question, do many even really want to be free? Because you can't handle the truth. But anywho, y'all be blessed. Y'all have a wonderful day. I am Angelica with In God's Timing, and I will talk to y'all soon. Love y'all.